What happens when art becomes about making money?
When art becomes about making money, we assume that you have the opportunity to turn your creative intellectual property into paychecks. You're an artist who has achieved a certain amount of gallery presence, or you're a good enough artist that you can go down to the farmer's market and set yourself up, stuff up and sell it. Or you're a writer who can submit pitches and get opportunities to create shows, or you're good enough to be hired on a staff. Then you need to serve the work in a slightly different way because you've found your audience, but you've also found your market. When you're just starting out, your market is yourself. You don't need to worry about what other people are going to do with what you've written. But when you've reached the point where you can monetize your work, then you have to ask yourself, what are my needs, but now also what are my audience's needs? Give you an example. I wrote a joke that was a Romeo and Juliet joke. And I pitched it to the show I was working on, and the guy said, we can't use that joke. Our audience doesn't know who Romeo and Juliet are. That kind of made me angry. It's like, who doesn't know who Romeo and Juliet are? But then I realized I'm not my audience. I need to respect my audience and write a version of that joke that they can relate to. It's, star-crossed lovers. I'm sure I can find something that speaks to them in their language. A phrase I use a lot. Be humble in service of the work. If the work is me at my desk writing for myself, I just want to make it as good as I can. So I'm going to get out of the way of my own ego and try to be in service of the work. But if I'm a writer on staff and I'm not making the decisions and somebody else is, I'm humble in service of the work in a different way. I need to serve the vision of the person who has hired me to support that vision. It's not about me, it's not about my ego. It's always about the ego, and it's never about the ego. I say those two things back to back, and they're absolutely true. If you're a young writer on a sitcom for the first time, you're gonna be scared to death, and you're gonna wanna prove yourself. And your ego will drive you to make choices. Pitch jokes, not pitch jokes, be defensive, be critical of other people. A lot of stuff what you'll be doing directly in service of your ego and your position in the room. If you can take a step back and say, I'm not here to serve the ego, I'm here to serve the work. Then you make a completely different set of choices, more collaborative, more constructive, more genuinely useful, because you say to yourself, my job is to serve my audience. Now let's be clear, I'm not saying my job is to pander to my audience or talk down to my audience. My job is to figure out what my audience wants and needs, what I know about what they want and need, and look for points of common interest between those two. I mentioned to you that I'll be on tour in Europe this summer, and one of the things that I will be doing is a 3-day sitcom lab and simulated writer's room. I'll deliver a body of text, story outlines, Bible, some sample script stuff. And I'll say to the writers in the room, okay, it's day 1 of 3 days in this writer's room, and we're going to experience what this is like. You're going to be humble in service of the work. You're not going to defend your ego, because that won't get you the results you want. And I've done this before, and it's so satisfying because it gives people a real world experience of being in a writer's room so that when they get into the writer's room for real, they won't be so freaked out. I detect in your question a subtext of, how do I know I'm not a sellout? Is that a fair appraisal?
That would be, yeah.
If you're selling, you're not a sellout, you're a seller. Let's put it that way. And if you, not to belabor the phrase, if you're humble in service of the work and you're serving some kind of creative mission, make the world laugh, then you don't really need to worry about being a sellout because you're not really putting your integrity on the line. Integrity, let's see if I can quote this right. It's from the Comedy Writer's Companion. I want to make sure I get it right. Integrity is being consistent around your values. I don't think I said it as well as I wrote it in the book, but the idea is, if I'm always in service of the work and my actions reflect that service, I never have to worry about selling out or not having integrity or delivering nonsense, because I'm in harmony with my desire. I'm in harmony with my purpose. And to bring it home, if your purpose is to make a living in creative practice, then any opportunity you have to sell under any circumstances, any opportunity you have to sell your IP, your creativity, you're in harmony with your purpose, because your purpose is to make a living as an artist. So why worry about whether it's beneath you or you're selling out or anything like that? Ultimately, your goal is to establish a voice that other people will want to listen to sustain your creative practice for as long as you live. There's a lot of tragedy along creative paths. To me, the first tragedy is never trying. I'm too scared. I always wanted to be a writer, but I never got around to writing. That's very common. To me, it's very sad. Another tragedy that exists here, maybe that's too strong a word, I have a creative practice, but it's not enough to sustain me. I can't make enough money at it, so I got to do other stuff. And then I have to navigate the whole conflict between, I want my time for my writing or my art, but I have to devote time to pulling a paycheck because otherwise I'm not going to be able to put food on the table. That's a sadness. Maybe we don't call it a tragedy. That's a sadness. If I say to you, I've reached a point where my creative practice is self-sustaining, I'm absolutely lying, because I've got a whole other practice in, get this, educational consulting. It came out of my wife's practice. I help people get into top business schools. It serves my purpose because it's massively impactful. I am making people's lives rise in a whole different way. And it's good money, and it's great that it's there. But it's fair to say that I've made a living as a creative practitioner, and I'll get to the end of my life having succeeded as a creative practitioner, and I'm deeply grateful to that. It was my goal, get good enough to build a self-sustaining practice as a writer. I achieved that and have done that for decades and decades. How did I get there? Putting a lot of words on the page, never being afraid of failure, always being willing to fail big, take chances, throw it out the window and see if it lands, and then recycle everything back into more learning. What I think I learned along the way that I didn't know when I started out was, if I devoted myself to a life of creative practice, I would become a much better version of myself, a much more enlightened version of myself. I almost want to blow some incense around it, a much more enlightened version of myself. But it's true. I know myself better, and I accept myself much more than I did when I was a frantic young person. So we can say, to try to cap this, if your challenge is, how do I deal with the money thing? Maybe understand that that challenge exists within a more all-encompassing challenge. How do I organize this life of mine so that it is in harmony with my goals for myself? And then you might find I can make all the art I want and never sell it and feel quite fine. Or you might find I am willing to sacrifice everything from my art, so I'm going to go live in a box until I make it as an artist. You might find that in order to meet your creative goals, you have to hustle a lot harder, which means face fear a lot more. But if you hustle a lot more, oh man, this is magic. If you hustle harder and face fear more, what will happen to you as a person? You will bloom, you will grow. You'll see yourself as someone who hustles hard and faces fear. Isn't that going to make you feel better about yourself? Isn't that what you want when you got into this thing in the first place? I have to say, before you guys showed up, I was having a crappy day. I told you I lost my wallet. It brings me such joy to have the opportunity to share these thoughts with the X number of people who see them. You have given me a great gift today by letting me lift myself out of my head and into the space where I feel in harmony with myself. So I'm deeply grateful to you for that.
That's so nice. Thank you, John. Our audience has gained so much from your interviews, and they leave these comments from all over the world. And for David and I mean, I shouldn't be speaking for him, but I know that you're up there with one of our favorite interviews.
I appreciate that.
We gain a lot from what you tell the audience, because some of the questions are really coming from us. So thank you. Yeah.
You know, when you have success as an artist and people tell you how great you are, you get into a whole other ego problem. How do I accept this validation that I'm receiving? A friend of mine gave me a great line, and I've lived off this line. When somebody gives you a compliment, when somebody gives me a compliment, I say, "You're too kind." "No, wait, you're just the right amount of kind." And what I love about that line is it takes me out of my own ego. I'm no longer thinking about, oh, the people who are thinking about me favorably in other parts of the world. Instead, I'm reminding myself that you've just given me a gift, and it's appropriate for me to say thank you for that gift. But I know it's true because I get emails from people who see these videos online. I've made book sales, I've made friends, I've gotten a lot of opportunities. We're symbiotic, you and I.
That's awesome. Do you think people have trouble accepting compliments, and that makes them a better artist because they don't rest on their laurels? They don't believe the hype?
I think that people have trouble accepting compliments. Let's start there. But I think people have trouble accepting compliments because they're in self-judgment. And even though you're telling me I'm wonderful, the little reptilian brain inside my head says I'm not that wonderful. So I can't accept this compliment at face value. I have to hold it at arm's length. It's not safe for me to feel that good about myself. I think a lot of people feel that way. I don't think creative practitioners are drawn by, you don't know what you're talking about, you're complimenting me for crap, therefore I got to show you that I'm capable of much better than that. I think that's much more of an inward drive. It's what we call have more, need more condition, and it's very common in creative practice. I started out as a songwriter, and as soon as I figured out I could write songs, I wanted to write something bigger. I had something, I wanted more. So I said, well, now I'm going to write situation comedy. It came with fear because I was trying to do something I hadn't done before. But I wasn't satisfied with what I'd done before, so I had to grow. And I wrote sitcoms, got some success. Okay, now I'm going to try hour drama. Have more, need more. Hour drama, screenplays. Have more, need more. Screenplays, novels, long-form fiction, how-to books. It's constant. There is a restlessness in a creative practitioner that says, it's not that what I did yesterday wasn't good or good enough. It's just that now I stand on the platform of what I did yesterday. I'm a little higher, I got a little better view. What do I want to do next? That's the nexus of this have more, need more thing. The interpersonal relationship between the artist and the audience, or the writer and the audience, for the part of that is that it's unhealthy. That is to say, I don't know how to take a compliment. You know, what Groucho Marx said, I would never join a club that would have me for a member. You don't know what you're talking about. I disrespect you. If you weren't so stupid, you wouldn't think I was so great. None of that has to do with the other person, and all of it has to do with what's going on inside my head.
Sure.
And I've spent my entire life aware of this and imperfectly addressing it. I don't have perfection on it now. Don't expect to. You know, I figure I'm going to die striving in some sense. I hope to, because that's what I want for myself. That's an execution of my purpose. For the time that I'm here, I have a limited number of years to create legacy. I'm not worried about what my legacy is after I'm dead. It'll take care of itself. But for me, legacy is the act of creating legacy. So if I do this interview and it helps somebody do something better in their lives, that's legacy. That's like I score a legacy point for that. I don't think about, do they love me? No, of course I think about, do they love me? Do they hate me? But then I hear that voice and I say, okay, I acknowledge, I am aware, and I have acceptance. I hear myself having the dark thought, the negative, critical, self-judgmental thought. I'm aware of it and I accept it. Awareness and acceptance, as I put in the book of practice, if you have awareness and acceptance, you have absolutely everything you need for anything, because you're never going to get tripped up. Let's turn it around. Let's say somebody says, I saw your set. Don't quit your day job. What's your reaction? Ouch, my feelings. It's visceral. You can feel it.
Sure.
You suck. Yeah. Oh, man, I do suck. I know I suck. I tell myself I suck every day. You've told me something that hurts me. What am I to do with the hurt? Be aware of it and accept it. For the part of what you've told me that is not valid, you were drunk in the back row, you talked through my whole set, you probably have your own crap that you're dealing with. I can set that aside. But for the part of you that has something instructive to offer, I was talking too fast, I was too insecure, my jokes were too smart for the house, nobody got the references. Okay, if all I feel is the pain, I can't do anything with that information. But if I have awareness and acceptance of the information, I can internalize it, use it, and grow. So somebody tells me, you talk too fast, and all I hear is, you're being critical of me, I hate you. I don't get the lesson, I don't get the information. If somebody says, you talk too fast, I can say, I'm aware of that, and I accept that. And then I can practice talking more slowly and get better at my craft. It's a positive feedback loop. When you filter through ego, you never get this positive feedback loop. You get a vicious cycle. Because you filter through ego, you say, how does this thing make me feel? It's critical, it makes me feel bad. Now I'm down on myself. I'm aware that I'm down on myself. I get more down on myself. I'm aware of that, and just down and down and down I go. But when you're in service of the work and somebody gives you input, you say, how can I use this input to improve the work? And then you use it, you talk more slowly, to take an example, and what happens? The work improves. And what happens when the work improves? You feel better about yourself. And if you feel better about yourself, what happens to your ego? It lifts up. We arrive at the fundamental Zen conundrum: to serve the ego, ignore the ego.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.